Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's March 20th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And as you can see, we bounced out of here. I wouldn't say we bounced out of here yet. We're still below the EMA. We've relieved some of the oversold conditions. We'll see if we get any follow through buying tomorrow. My guess is that we're probably headed to this trend line. If it's going to continue to hold, it may just be two legs down. So we might just have a short-term trend here with a break and new low, and we could bounce higher. We may just still be going to stay sideways in this trading range. It's kind of looking that way, but I don't want to lose sight of this khaki or yellow-colored trend channel that's working down here because we may just be that may be our target. We may turn down off that and push lower, try to push lower again. So far, we haven't been able to breach this 3,900 level here. Um, it's been just 39 level. Actually, it was just slightly below 39, 38.51 to 3,900, somewhere in that range. That 50-point range has been strong support for a while here. We had this one that we temporarily kind of pushed through here, but again here, but they don't last very long. And the last two times we bounced here. So if we bounce here again, um, we could go higher. We'll see what happens here. We may be just going to continue to chop sideways. That would be my minimum expectations, that we may chop sideways here. But we'll see if we get any follow through buying tomorrow. The market hadn't quite closed the day yet today. It's not quite 4 o'clock. So we'll see what happens if we get any follow through buying tomorrow, or if we turn back down or just kind of continue to chop sideways here. So relatively bullish day today. It wasn't a strong straight up kind of trend, but it looks like we're probably going to close near the highs. So prices are working, uh, testing the highs as I'm doing this chart here. Of course, there's only 5 or 10 minutes left in the day, so I don't see it going a whole lot higher. But you never know when we could push on up another 5 or 10 points before in the next 5 or 10 minutes here. Looks like 6 or 7 minutes. But anyway, there's a look at the daily chart with the envelope bands. We have relieved this. This is the midline, so we haven't been able to get through that midline yet. Um, but we have relieved the oversold conditions when we were down here, very oversold. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. But let's flip over to the intraday chart, and you can see it. It's mostly trended up, but it was not a real. Even though it was a spiking channel up early, it wasn't a strong day. It was kind of a mixed trading day that continued to move higher. That's the way I would describe it. But let's flip over and take a look at it, and we'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. Okay, here's a look at our intraday chart. You can see that we had a big trend down, a break, and then a new low, and then we spiked out of there and had this spiking channel. We got a break and a few swings to a new high, and it looked like we might sell off, but we came back and tested this yellow is the open from 8:30. We came back and tested that, and we went higher from there. Of course, you can see we got a channel up with a break, and then we got a channel down with a break and new low, and then we're finally made. We didn't quite make a new high here on the retest, but today's basically over, so I don't think we're going to make. We might make it for the intraday's over, but or for after the 5 p.m. open. But it doesn't really matter. We'd be into the next day anyway. But there it is. I mean, this is almost really right in here. You could play this both ways. We got a pretty good trend going by here, so I'd probably only buy after that point. And then we just didn't really get any setups to go short here. Uh, you had to be real careful buying in here, um, or you definitely didn't want to sell in here. And then we just really never got another setup before we bottomed out, and there just wasn't much. There wasn't much chance to get in any of these. There just wasn't a good setup. So you got a few late opportunities here uh, after lunch, like the 1 o'clock area. But other than that, it was kind of slow after about 10:30 today. So, but that's what it looks like. There were no news items today, so you didn't have to worry about something at 7 o'clock or whatever. We could start trading pretty right on time this morning, You didn't have to worry about any kind of real crazy news popping up today, or uh, at least crazy scheduled news. It doesn't mean we can't get some news that would spook the market, especially with the banking situation. But anyway, no scheduled news today. Again, you might have wanted to play this as a range right through here. You can see we moved a measured move here, and this is probably really a midline here. Uh, so I probably would have adjusted this to look more like that. Um, and you can see we were almost going to get a measured move on that, but didn't quite make it. But that's probably how I would have played this sideways in here. Um, and then when we broke out here, you could play this as a continuing range as we try to retest the highs here. So that's kind of how I see it. It should have been played. It was a real weak spike in channel up until right in here. We kind of, once people realized we were going higher, it kind of accelerated there. So anyway, let's zoom in here, go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. First trade came just after 7 o'clock here. Notice we're in this sideways. We had a little failed break lower, and then you made a higher low that came back and tested this area. I like going long there, just looking for it, ride it to the other side. And this thing just keeps going here, comes back, and you actually get a second entry long when it breaks higher here. And you could almost argue there's a triple test there. I would probably wait. That's a little congested, and that's not the greatest signal bar on that higher low. It's really just looks like acceptance of prices at that level. You're not really getting rejection. But then when it comes back and gives you a sure triple test, I like going long there. And you can see the smarter traders are waiting on the same, just more information, and it runs straight up then. And of course, it comes back down. You get another second entry here, but no setup. And then you're working back down. You get a little two-legged correction, and you make another leg down, and you get a second entry here, and it pretty much confirms that trend line. I mean, it's right off of it. So if you drew that trend line off these two swings here, and it was already fitting and looking, you really should already have this trend line in place just in case, even though you might have been playing the range at this point. When it bounces off of it pretty much right there, that far away from the EMA, I like taking that trade. And that's a nice move. You can see how quickly it runs up. And now I think people have a little more faith in this blue channel working up through here. And I marked this. I'm not crazy about this because there's still resistance here. But that's a second entry long. Right off that support. There's probably enough room to get out there. Just make sure you do get room to get out there. It didn't end up mattering, but you want to get a good enough entry here where you got room to get out before these highs up here. It doesn't end up mattering. It keeps going, and then now we've you get a triple test here, pretty much. It's not quite a triple test. I'd really like to see some space here, but we came up once and then turned down and came back. And we actually turned down there and came back again. But to me, that looks more like a double test. You could argue it's real close. Let me zoom in here so it's a little easier to see. So I marked it because you can see the failed break higher there and plenty of room back to the EMA. So you may take that trade. I only marked it green. It's a little bit aggressive, but anyway, you may take that trade all the same. Then we're working down. We get a close outside. We're really going sideways here and get a breakout. But notice the new swing low right there. It's lower than that one. So you get a first entry and then a second entry. Really bearish bar. It looks like this is going to be a failed break out of the pink range, and that's a pretty nice move down. And of course, we do get a little break of the trend line here. This one is tempting. I'd probably wait for a higher low, which comes here, and then it closes below the EMA. So, and then you get an inside bar. So if it would have broke right above this bar, maybe you go long, but I don't like entering above that inside bar. They can be unreliable. Uh, Turned out it was a good trade, but you can't look back at stuff like that. And then notice we come back and we test this, the upper side of the range 1, 2, 3 times. You get a triple test there with that nice signal bar. I'm going long right there every time, because we're probably going to push and make another, at least make another leg up like this first one after the break of your trend channel. And we may make a measured leg similar to the width of the range, the pink range down here. And you can see we easily made that target and kind of sold off there. And then we get a perfect repeat pattern. It looks just like this. I mean, it's you drop down here and you get a triple test with another nice signal bar. I like going long again. The only reason I made this green is because we just came off the midline and we didn't get back to the trend line here, and that was our likely target. That's where you would expect prices to go. But this thing kind of strengthened here once we got out, once people realized it was going higher. So you may take that trade. I mean, it's a perfect repeat pattern, a triple test. It looks just almost exactly like that. You do have, looks like 2 legs back, and then that triple test. Um, I like going long there. It's a little aggressive, and you could almost argue for a failure here, but that just looks too congested. And of course, it runs up and it almost makes the measured move based on the width of the. I mean, that's close enough. I mean, I might be off a tick or so here on this. It might be more. Uh, might be more like that, or it might even be lower. I might be off a tick or two, but that's close enough to call that a measured move, really, or at least it was a minute ago. I guess I moved it to an even different place. Yeah, maybe it's more like that right there is what I was looking at or trying to look at. And you can see that would give us a measured move there. Uh, it's tempting to want to go short, but that's too congested. You would hope you'd get a lower high here. You don't. You might argue there's a failure right there, and but when you got another bar, an inside bar, it does have equal highs, but it's still an inside bar, and there's a little support right there. I just don't think you want to go short. You just really don't get a good chance to go short on this. And it's unfortunate because it's a really nice move, but you can't look back at those. I talk about this occasionally is if you miss a really good move and for whatever reason you can't get in the trade, don't look back and say, look, I knew I should have entered and I could have made all this money, because the next time you'll remember that and you'll enter that trade, and guess what? It won't work because it wasn't a great setup and you'll end up losing. So never look back at trades and say, hey, what could have been, because all it does is mess with your psyche, and so much of what we do in trading is psychological. You just don't want to risk that. So it's not worth worrying about it. So, but anyway, we get a break here and then we overshoot down here. Maybe this is two tiered. It doesn't matter. We had a break and a new low. And next thing you know, we confirm this trend right here, but I don't think you want to enter right there. And then we go on this range and it breaks out of there and there's no setup. So again, there's no real entry here. And then we work back over here, get a close outside, and next thing you know, we really got a trend working down. Now we do get a second entry right here that confirms that trend. Now really you confirm the trend line here. There's 3 swings there, but this just more or less that far away from the EMA on a second entry. You definitely confirm it here. I like that trade. And when it comes back and gives you this lower high, maybe you enter there. I don't like it quite as much because there's a little stem there, and then you get an inside bar. But odds are we're going to make a new low here, and it does end up going lower. And then, of course, it bounces, and then we get a triple test here and another second entry way away from the EMA. So I like going short right there. And you get that little break higher above these bars that ends up closing. It actually closes lower than a couple of these last highs up here. And then you get a lower high here. I like going short there again. And then it ends up just kind of chopping around. And that takes us into 230. I don't see anything else I really like here. There is a first entry, and then a second entry here. And you do have the break and two new legs lower, but this is an inside bar is the problem. So even though you got a second entry, I don't think you um, want to take that. Technically, the second entry long is right here. So I'm wrong on that first entry, second entry. This is just a first entry, and it's inside bar regardless, so you can't take that. And that pretty much does it for the day. That's kind of how I saw it. Again, early on, you could have traded this as like a range. That's how I would have played this. But once we tested this a few times and kept going higher, you had to. It was pretty obvious this blue channel, the spiking channel, was in play. And of course, we did have a break here and two legs up, and then one more push before we sold off really strongly. And it was just really hard to find any entries in this move down and this move up. So anyway, that's how I saw it today. Pretty good trading day, not too bad. If you sat through all this, you got rewarded a little bit late in the afternoon on this move back down here. But there wasn't much happening after about 10:30, 11 o'clock. So I've always enjoyed trading the mornings more. It seems like there's, I would say, sometimes people ask me, is it easier in the morning? I wouldn't say that it's necessarily easier. I just think that price action is more organized and that you get more setups that are clear. So that's how I would describe the mornings for the most part. Sometimes the afternoons, every once in a blue moon, we get a really good afternoon after a not so good morning, or the whole day is really good like that. But for the most part, generally speaking, I like trading the mornings because it just seems to be more organized and you get more good setups. And I'll leave it at that. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.